So once you've set your props up, so your bolster more or less on the center line, I've got a block and a brick underneath there. You're going to lie down, and you want about a fist distance at least between the bolster and your pelvis, so that as you lie down, you're sort of not squeezing over your lower back. You've got more of a chance to just tuck the tailbone away a fraction, and then ease your way down gently. We're going to have the feet as wide as the mat and let the knees rock in, so the knees are high. And then gradually just ease the spine back onto that bolster. Sometimes it needs a little bit of wriggling around. And it's a nice chest opening pose for our beginning of our class. And hopefully that will clear some of the congestion in the lungs. And also let the front of the chest and the ribs have a nice stretch out. Just a word of caution, if you are doing this at any other time, always make sure that your head is supported on the bolster. And if there's any pains in the back at all as you move into the pose, then you need to consider whether that's going to stay there or whether it's going to subside. If it's not, just rolling gently off to the side is the way to get out of the pose. So slowly walk the feet back into the center line and bring the heels close into the body. And then bring the soles of the feet together so the knees open out wide. And just letting those knees reach down towards the floor. Keeping the head on the mat, I'm just going to take the left hand and slowly peel that left leg up and roll myself gently over towards the right side of the mat. Take a breath. Once I'm on the floor, use the hands to press into the ground to lift ourselves up. So I just need to move the bolsters and blocks out of the way. And we'll return to the floor for happy baby. We'll draw the knees in towards the body. Knees will widen out. We'll slide the hands along the shins. Take the hands around the little toe side of the feet. And then extend the feet directly above the knees. I'll try and loosen off the shoulders a little bit. And allow your tailbone to sink down to the floor. So you're going to make a conscious effort to use the muscles in your lower back, through your abdominal, and in your pelvic bowl to press your tailbone down towards the floor. But as you do that, you want to still try and maintain a fairly relaxed shoulder girdle. So you're not lifting the shoulders up and hunching them and taking roundness in the upper back to get away from roundness in the lower back. The idea is to get the whole of the back as fat as you can. Feet back down to the floor, keeping them close in towards your bottom. Allow the arms to come out wide, crucifix style, in line with the chest, and take your legs gently over towards your right side. Keeping the shoulders on the ground if you can, turn the head to the left. And exhale, allow the legs to travel back up to the center, realign if you need, and then let the legs roll over to the opposite side. So just bringing them down gently, noticing whether the legs naturally fall to more or less the same place, or whether there's any differences from side to side. It's an awareness, consciousness of those differences rather than trying to do anything about it. I'm going to take the right hand onto the chest, slide it across over to the left side. Put your hands into the floor and let ourselves lift away from the ground. I'm going to lengthen the legs out into Dandasana. So I'm going to bring the feet together, roll the thighs in a little, hands by the side of the body, roll the shoulders back, the sitting bones into the floor, flex the toes lightly towards us. Across the ankles gently and slide the heels in so that I can roll over the ankles onto the all fours in front of the mat. In cat-cow. Chin position, rolling the chest forwards a little bit, tilting the pelvis, and letting yourself pull the spine towards the sky. Inhaling up, and exhaling it out. So if this is the first stretch of the morning, you want to be particularly careful, not pushing too hard And just think about the quality, the smoothness of the way that you travel through from A to B. If you've worked out, you're doing this class later in the evening, you can maybe start a little more enthusiastically as your spine's had the day to warm up. You take the opportunity to spread the fingers out, feel the tendons underneath the palms of the hands moving and stretching. And then we'll come back into child's pose, but I'm going to keep the knees just that hip distance apart, so it's quite a narrow version, and allow the hands to walk out. And the head isn't quite touching the floor, but it's getting close. The heels are touching the buttocks. They're not touching the buttocks, allow yourself just to place a block underneath the back of the thighs. Allow yourself to enjoy breathing against your diaphragm a little bit. It's going to be squished up underneath you. So we're moving the breath into different parts of the body. We want to have the elbows away from the ground, the palms flat to the floor. And just as we started with the head not quite on the ground, as the legs start to give a little bit and the spine gives as well, you might notice your forehead gradually starts to touch the floor. A really nice way to stretch out those lower back muscles with the breath, of which we're taking the last one. On the exhale, bring the hands back onto the mat and let ourselves lift up. I'm going to pivot the feet out to the side and come to sit onto my bottom. I'm going to bring the heels in towards the groin for Sukhasana. So I'm not crossing the ankles, but I want to try and get the shins down to the floor. And take a little breath from here and take a twist towards the right side of the mat. Come back. See if we can quickly cross the ankles the opposite way, or the heels around the opposite way. And then take the twist to the opposite side. And try to get the shins on the ground. Sitting tall. Keeping the head aligned with the spine. Try not to lean back too much. Keeping the weight pretty much even through both sitting bones. We'll release. We'll take the feet back to that first position again. And then lean forwards gently. Walking the hands back. Cross the legs to the less favored version. Some height in the body. Draw the pelvis back towards the back of the mat as you stretch the hands towards the front of the mat and lower yourself down. Now, some people are going to get as low as the ground. Some people might be tempted to drop the elbows down. We're only staying here for a short period of time, so we're going to use the hands out wide out in front and go for lengthening the spine rather than worrying about the depth. We're able to roll over the hips. Just drawing the belly in lightly, making some space. Last breath here. And walking the hands back up. Come back up onto tabletop. So we'll just take those feet out to the side. Let ourselves lift up. Once we're organized, picking the toes underneath, we'll take ourselves into the first down dog. Now I still have my block at the back of the mat here, and I'm using the heels to press down onto the block. The feet are parallel, a good distance apart. So the legs are pretty straight. Drawing the hips up and back. Just rolling the armpits a little into the ground. Making sure the hands are very flat to the floor. And I'm going to see if I can walk the hands in towards the feet, which are on the block. So I need to come up onto the fingertips there. And then just move the heels gently off of the block to the side and keep the block a little further back with the fingertips. Allow myself to fold over those thighs. Press the feet into the floor and lift the hips up. Now bring the hands onto the hips, soften the knees a little. Let the spine stay flat as we lift up. Take a nice breath. Exhale it out, and then just slowly walk into the front of the mat. Feet hip distance apart. Come into our sun salutations, variations of. Hands into the heart. Exhale down to the floor. And take a breath. Take the right foot to the back of the mat into a lunge. Allow ourselves to just press the heel away. And drop the heel onto the center line of the mat. Bring the hands alongside the body a little. Get that right arm forwards. See if we can cartwheel up, pressing down through the shin and the heel of that front leg. Taking a little bit of weight into the back leg to balance the body out. Inhale the arms above the head. Rotate gently, lengthening out, keeping the back foot pressed down. We bring the hands to the floor and step ourselves back into down dog. We'll take a breath in to plank. Push forwards on the tippy toes. Bring the elbows into the ribs for half plank. Bootlaces changed now. Inhale for up dog, strong legs. Roll slowly over the feet if you can to bring yourself back into down dog. Now bring your right knee in towards your chest and exhale the foot through into lunge. Just to bring ourselves into the opposite side, but still trying to get that very straight back leg. I'm going to push off the toes on an exhale. Forward bend. And bring the hands onto the hips and let ourselves lift up. Hands back in towards the heart. We'll lead this time with the left foot as we exhale down, drawing the belly in. Down to the floor. Breath. Left leg back. Into lunge. Just wriggle the foot away. Allow yourself to get that hip down low. Then drop the heel in to the center line. Hands alongside the body. We lift a little. Left arm floats forwards. We'll cartwheel up. Balance out through both legs. And float the arms high. And lengthen out slowly. Exhaling down to the floor. Stepping it back into the down dog. Taking a breath into plank. Use the exhale to fold forwards into the half. Inhale for the up dog. Roll it back into that down dog. And we'll draw the left knee in. Bring the foot through for lunge. And push off the back toes. And then forward bend. So we're going to do the same. We're just going to throw a little lizard pose in there as well. Hands into the heart, breath in. Exhale down to the floor. Right leg back. Bring that left hand in and just walk the left foot out to the side. And try and keep the foot parallel to the mat. And see if you can brace your arm and your leg together at the front. So you're squeezing the thigh back into the center line. And also be conscious of where your body line is to that center line of the mat. So quite often when we take the foot out to the side, the body kind of swings over that way as well on the tailbone. So I want to try and be as long and centered over the mat as I can, squeezing that thigh in. And you feel the difference through your hips. You try and take that sideways movement a little bit. Take a little breath from there, and then allow the foot to walk back in. Just the hands around, and drop the back heel to the ground. Hands alongside the body. Right arm lifts up, and the cartwheel again into warrior two. And float the arms high again, and extend out towards the front of the mat gently. Bringing the hands down. Careful with the placement, trying to keep them balanced at the front of the mat. Adjusting our down dog. Move forwards into the plank as we breathe in. Pushing forwards on the tippy toes, elbows into ribs. Try not to let yourself come down too far as you get tired with these. Back into your down dog. Now we'll bring the right knee in through for lunge. And on an exhale, step it forwards. Bring the hands onto the hips to let ourselves lift up. Hands into the heart again. Breath in. Exhale down. Take the left leg back. Walk the right foot out this time. Placing the hands. Bringing the body back over the center line. So you can see that kind of little sway from side to side. And then keeping your body on the center line, start to squeeze the thigh in. It certainly turns the heat up in the pose. And we'll just wiggle that foot back in to normal lunge position. Drop the heel on the center line. Bring the hands alongside the body. Float that left arm forwards and up. Into our warrior. Bring the hands high. Rotate slowly out towards the front of the mat. And down. Step it back into the dog. And adjust. And come forwards into the plank. To half plank. To up dog. And back into down dog. And left knee comes in. Final lunge. And then press off the back toes. That forward bend. And bring the hands onto the hips, soften the knees, and let ourselves lift. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Let's spin a little towards the right side of the mat. Take the legs out into a nice big star shape. And then we're going to turn the toes towards the front of the mat and sink into warrior two. We'll turn the palm on the front hand, move into reverse warrior. You want to keep the back leg strong. Allow yourself to move towards the back of the mat a little bit. You can walk your hand down your thigh towards your knee. You come back into your warrior two, and then you start to extend out over the front leg, keeping the knee over the ankle. Forearm comes down. Take the palm up towards the sky, and then forwards, and lengthen that out, following the line of the body. A strong hand, and a strong back foot over there. One's lengthening out, one's pressing down. I'm trying to lift a little off of that front thigh as well, so there's not too much weight in this front shoulder. And then we'll come back up to warrior two. Bring the hands in towards the heart, straighten the front leg, and then gently turn the toes inwards towards the center of our body. Bring the hands onto the hips, elbows and shoulders back, drawing the belly in, keeping the spine long. I'm going to fold over gently, put a little tiny bend in the knees as you come down. Once you get halfway, let the fingers come down to the floor. Allow yourself to make any kind of adjustments to the feet. Certainly further out or in, no choice. And then on the exhale, allow yourself to simply hinge from the hips down towards the ground. We'll lift our way back up. Soften the knees just a fraction. Bring the hands onto the hips. Roll those shoulders and elbows back. Ourselves lift up slowly. Take the hands out wide again. And turn the toes towards the back of the mat. Sink into warrior two. And then we'll turn the palm on the front hand and lift that up into that reverse warrior. Coming through warrior two. Extend out. Forearm down. And goes high first. We open the chest fully to the long side of the mat. And then extend the arm out. And we'll come back into our warrior two. Straighten the front leg. Hands onto the hips, turn those toes in again. Soften the knees gently. Slow hinge forwards. And down we go. Fingers on the floor. Make any final adjustments. Take a little breath. And allow ourselves to slowly hinge down. Pushing the feet into the floor and trying to lift the tailbone high. Then drawn in a little bit to help you fold. Try and keep your shoulders nice and broad and away from the ears. Last breath in. And start to lift back up again. Draw the abdominal muscles in, bring the hands onto the hips, a little softness in the knees, and we lift ourselves slowly back up. We we'll wiggle the toes back in. Turned into a 5-year-old all of a sudden there for a moment. And then just shake the legs out a little bit. And please step back in towards the front of the mat. Now we're going to take a standing balance. I'm going to turn off to the edge a little bit, but if you want to find something you can focus on, I've just got a blank wall there with no real identity there to it. So it's kind of like looking into an abyss. Doesn't help with the balance. I'm also going to turn myself just off of the mat a little bit, so it's a little firmer underfoot. So once you've found your object, we're going to take the weight into that left leg and just slowly draw the right knee up. And see if we can draw it high enough to take the hands around the shin without diving forwards too much. And start to draw the knee in towards the chest. So we're going to work the arms. We're going to try and keep the body upright, not leaning back. Pressing down through the standing leg. That supporting foot, which is rocking around a lot this morning. And then we're going to release that foot to the floor, side by side, and then just shift the weight gently over to the other side, trying to avoid letting the hip hang out to the side too much. I'm going to try and keep the body over the center line. And then starting to lift the left leg. Oops. Bring the knee gently in. Try and keep the breath smooth. Not quite there yet, back within the balance. One more breath here. And then we can let that come back down and shake it back out. So, experimental project number 1 to find out whether my balance has come back after a cold proves that it's not quite there yet. We'll take a little breath from here. Bring the hands in towards the heart, back onto the mat. And allow ourselves to come down to the floor. Now I'm going to bend the knees a lot, as if I'm sitting back into a chair. So I want to get pretty low down here. And then just take the hands away from the floor out in front. I'm going to lift the body about halfway up, but keeping the legs where they were. And then bring the hands in towards the heart. So my knees are hip distance apart, so there's my feet, which are parallel. I'm going to rotate my left elbow around to the right thigh and try and keep my tailbone on the center line of the mat. Draw the chest forwards. So it's a wide-legged chair pose in the evolved version. And we'll take it slowly over to the opposite side. So coming back up that halfway point, rolling around, there's a little bit of a stretch. And back into the center. And then we're going to extend the hands out. So then perhaps a more recognizable chair pose. And then bring the hands to the floor. Ooh. Let those legs open out. So we'll take a couple of breaths here, just with the fingertips on the floor, as we open out the back of the legs. And then we're going to lift the right foot, just pivoting on the heel. Take the right hand under so the palm faces into the sole. And stand on the back of the hand, toes in towards the wrist. Find your balance. Take the same with the left foot. And try and let the body hang over the hips, but pull the hips towards the sky. So the torso feels relatively relaxed. And the legs feel like they're doing a lot of work. Again, this does work on the balance as well as stretching out the back of the legs. Sense those thighs lifting as well as the hips. Last breath. Whew. Slowly take the hands out. Give the fingers a little wriggle. The blood come back in. Then bring the hands back onto the hips. So that's the length and slowly back up. We'll take a step to the side and see if we can take tree pose. I'm just waiting for the blood and everything else to float from the head back down. And bring the hands in towards the heart. So feet are together. I'm off the mat again. Just found my focal point. I'm going to lean into the left leg and take the right heel to the left ankle and turn the toes out to the side so I can open out the hip. And take a little breath from here and see if I can bring the foot onto the side of the shin and the calf and then the out to the side. Now, by all means, you can take the foot higher into the groin if you wish. Try to avoid having the foot pressing into the knee joint. So either above or below. And now we'll release that foot to the floor from wherever you are. Shake out the legs a little bit. And let yourself move into the second side. When you're ready in your own time, lift the heel, turn the toes. Once you've opened the hip out, find your balance. Now lift your foot to wherever you want to work with. And then we'll let that foot come down to the floor as well. Just shake out the legs again. Step back onto the mat. So a little further away from the front of the mat, bringing the hands into the heart. Exhaling down over the thighs. Bringing the hands into the front of the mat. Stepping back into my down dog. I'm going to bring the feet together on the center line at the back of the mat. Take a little breath and draw the left knee towards the body. I'm going to float into a plank and move my left knee to the outside leg and the left elbow and bring the heel back under the groin, directly underneath the body. And then sink the shin down towards the floor and walk the right foot back into pigeon. And try and send the tailbone towards the back of the mat and down towards the floor a little bit. So I'm pulling the pelvis towards the back of the mat and pressing down into the back leg a little as well as front shin. And I'm trying to square the hips towards the front of the mat. So when you come into this pose, generally you've kind of hooked, in this case, the left hip forwards a little bit. So I'm now starting to adjust that and taking the left hip back and the right hip forwards a little bit. So there's quite a lot going on in squaring myself to the front of the mat. From the outside, it doesn't look like anything's really changed, but it's that progression of moving and working the muscles in different directions. So bring myself back into alignment with the center of the mat. Now, doing that all by sense of feeling. We're not looking down at the body to kind of give us any clues. I'm just trying to go, it feels like it needs to move around. We'll take a little breath there and tuck the toe on the back foot as we release. Lift the knee away from the ground, press into the front shin to get the hips to begin to move. And then we can come back up to that down dog and bring the toes back onto the center line. And we'll do the same to the opposite side. So the right knee comes in, moves out towards the elbow, hook the foot down slowly, and bring ourselves in, just making sure we feel comfortable in that knee. And walking the foot back, preferably down the center line. Bootlaces down the shin, and then getting that little rotation through the hips to square them up. Drawing the front leg back a little bit, pressing the rear leg down and a little forwards. The tailbone generally pressing down to the floor, and the top of the pelvis being pulled towards the back of the mat to lift the chest away from the ground. I'm concentrating so much, got my tongue hanging out. Put the toes on the back foot, lift the knee, lift the hips, and yourself back into your down dog. We'll take the feet hip distance apart. We'll take a little breath here. I'm going to lift the left leg up as high as I can and let the hip rotate out a little bit to the side. Point the toes towards the ceiling. Keeping both arms locked rather than letting them bend underneath me. And squeeze into that buttock a little bit to try and lift the leg a little higher. Last breath in. We'll bring the foot back down to the floor, rotate the hips back in. And then we'll do the same with the opposite side. So we'll take that opportunity to open the hip out, point the toes as high as we can. And squeeze a little bit into the butt. And bring that leg back down to the floor. We'll move into a plank and bring the knees down to the ground. Take a little breath here, tucking the toes of the right foot underneath, and slide that leg back and then out to the side. And I'm going to take the foot forwards a little bit further as well. So my foot is now kind of lining up more with my hands. I'll tuck the toes of the back foot underneath, pivoting on the front heel, allow myself to sit down. And I'm going to see if I can point the toes of this extended leg up towards the sky. I'm going to press out through the heel a little bit. And I also want to try and lift the body up and out. So I'm just on the fingertips and drawing the belly in, not really resting into the hands. I'm going to let myself lift back up. Slide the leg all the way back, knee underneath. Take a little breath. Take the left foot back. Slide that foot out and forwards. Tuck the toes on the back foot as I lean back, pivoting on the heel. Try and sit on the sitting bones, up onto the fingertips, and lengthen out through that leg. press down and away. Slide the foot back. Whew. So bringing myself back into tabletop, tap the toes of the right leg underneath. Take it out 90 degrees to the body this time, and the sole of the foot flat to the floor. I'll touch the toes again on that bottom foot underneath. And allow myself to walk the fingers back as I bring myself up. I'm going to press the right hip down a little bit with that right hand. Get the left arm up against the air and extend out to the side into gate pose. And lift and lengthen out as I press through the fingertips and down into the extended foot to the side of the mat. Keeping the belly drawn in a little. Bring ourselves back. Hands to the floor. Whew. And slide the foot back. Underneath, knee into tabletop. And then we'll take the left leg out to the side. Make sure that this thigh that we're resting on is vertical, not creating an angle by over-lengthening the leg out to the side. You come up, press into that hip just a little bit, press down through the foot. Right arm lifts up, we'll extend up and over. It doesn't have to be the deepest side bend in the world. We're looking for more length. And trying to keep this left shoulder away from the ear, just pressing down lightly into the hip. Pressing down into the foot so I can feel that inner thigh active. Now, sometimes I turn the toes underneath on that bottom foot, sometimes I don't. There, I forgot. But I'm noticing why I do it now, less balance. Last breath in, come back up. Whew. Bring ourselves back down to the floor. Slide the legs back in. I'm going to pivot on the knees, take the feet out to the side, and allow myself to come back down to the floor. I have the feet about hip distance apart and just walk my bottom in a little closer. So it's more or less heels underneath knees. And then roll the spine down gently, hands alongside the body. And we're going to come into bridge pose, but we're going to do the sort of robot arms version, I call it. I guess there might be a better name for it, but that works. So we're going to bend at the elbows and have the hands facing, pointing towards the sky, but facing into the center of the body. So palm faces palm. We're going to start to gradually press down through the back of the triceps and the back of the shoulders into the ground. We'll take a little breath from there. Turn the heels out very slightly to encourage the knees to come in. And then on the next exhale, start to peel the spine away from the floor and up towards the sky. Allow yourself to try and press the knees forwards a little bit. Keep the arms pressing down to the floor. And breathing nice and steadily. And try to avoid the elbows spreading out to the sideways during the pose. Try and keep them pulled in a little bit. They do tend to run away from me. I don't know if that's just me or everyone gets that. And then we're going to slowly roll the spine back down to the floor as we kind of ease off through the muscles and let them relax. And then bring the hands back down to the floor. So we'll come into our second of three. Arms face in, elbows down, shoulders back into the ground. Get a good connection, draw the belly to the spine and then start to tuck the tailbone away and lifting up gently and slowly. Feel all of the vertebrae moving away from the floor disc at a time. Pressing the knees forwards as we did before. And remembering to breathe. Last breath. Begin to roll yourself back down to the floor. Again, once you've landed, let the arms relax. We'll bring the arms back in again. Nice breath in. Draw the belly in and curl the spine. And lift as high as you comfortably can, remembering to press those thighs forwards. And then roll the spine gently down to the floor. Now, as we arrive, we'll walk the heels very closely towards the bottom and together, and the knees and thighs touching. We'll take the hands around the back of the right thigh, interlacing the hands, and then slowly extend the right leg towards the sky, trying to get that directly above the hip. And then we're just going to use the toes to claw the left foot down towards the bottom of the mat until we can slide the heel away easily. And we're going to press the buttock, the back of the thigh, the calf, and the heel of that leg into the ground lightly. The toes pointing towards the sky. Still trying to lengthen out through that raised leg. Now we'll slide the heel back in. And bring the foot to the floor. So we try and keep the foot connected to the ground as we do this. Bring the left leg in. Take the hands into position and then from that leg out slowly. Press the heel upwards. When you're ready, we'll use toes again, just to walk the right leg out. And press down through the entirety of that leg. And we'll release from there as well. You can, if you wish to, find that bolster and bring that underneath the back of your thighs. So you're going to have the feet still wide and the heels connected to the ground. And the block's more, sorry, the bolster is more underneath the back of the thighs than it is the calves. Put an extra layer on here. Eventually. Okay. I'm going to use the hands to guide myself into position, chin towards the chest a little bit. And so making sure that the heels are connected to the ground. And so into Shavasana, just got the legs supported and lifted. Spine out a little bit, wriggle the shoulders underneath. And soften the jaw. And take a couple of deeper breaths in, if you're able to, through the nose, and exhale out through the mouth. We'll begin to stretch those fingers and toes. Breathing a little deeper, we'll begin to move the wrists and ankles. When we feel connected, we'll allow stretch in any direction that feels good. Slide the heels deliberately along the ground. Lift a leg at a time over the bolster and let the knees come in towards the body for a very simple hug. And use one foot to just move the bolster a little towards of you. And then rolling onto your right side, taking a breath in, and using the hands to press down into the floor to lift it. And we'll come back to sitting upright. Bringing the hands into your heart. Take a breath in, close the eyes. A slow exhale, letting the chin drop. As the belly draws in, a simple bow can form, similar our practice. Breath comes in, spine lifts, head lifts, eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Hope you enjoyed. See you on the mat again soon.